So, to start off, who are we? Who is Aerogen? So we are the world leader in acute care aerosol drug delivery technology. However, it definitely wasn't an overnight success story. Aerogen was started just over 25 years ago in Mycullen, which is a village just about 10 minutes away from here, by John Power, who is our current CEO. It started with 2 people above a little butcher shop, and it has since grown to have over 500 people in multiple countries all around the world that you can see highlighted on the map. In the 25 years, our technology has helped benefit the lives of nearly 20 million people from all around the world. The company is unusual in the sense that over the last 10 years we've grown over 20% year on year, and we continue to grow and expand across multiple markets. So what is our technology? Our technology is a vibrating mesh nebulizer. I won't go into too much detail here. If anyone's interested, you can look on our website to find out more. But basically how it works is it takes a liquid drug and converts it into an aerosol. With the vibrating mesh technology, it vibrates the drug at 128,000 times per second and converts the liquid into an aerosol that's always between 1 and 5 microns in size. Why this is important is because this is the optimal size for drugs to get deposited into the lung. So that means patients treated with our technology get more drug into their lungs faster, and as a result, get better quicker. Our technology can be used across the hospital, and my colleagues again in marketing will speak a little bit more to this and the uses, and again how we promote Aerogen across the different areas of the hospital. But it can be used by patients who come into the emergency department. So I'm sure all of you know people who have asthma or different respiratory conditions. So a patient who comes into the ED, short of breath, they might be treated by Aerogen, but equally the sickest patients in the ICU on a ventilator would be treated by Aerogen. Across COVID, Aerogen treated more than 3 million patients around the world. So our technology had a huge impact. In terms of Aerogen as a company, what makes us different? Lots of different reasons. But I think the ones that really stand out to me are our purpose and the fact that we really do live by it. Our purpose is to positively impact patients' lives. And everything we do in the company really lives by that. I think the perfect example is the fact that whilst it's a privately owned Irish company, all profits made by Aerogen are reinvested back into the company. I don't know if anyone in this room has ever worked in a company or heard of another company that does that. I certainly haven't. I think it really signifies how important Aerogen really believes about continuously improving our technology and ensuring we really can help as many patients around the world as possible. We have wonderful values in Aerogen, and you'll see based in the very centre of those, embodying all our values is with care. And again, this is how we live our purpose every day in the company. We've multiple initiatives across the company, which our team really love getting involved with. So from Aerogen Connect, which is our framework, I suppose, all around employee engagement, events and activities. So for example, all the teams in the company would have a budget every year, and they can use that budget to do pretty much whatever they want within reason, but go bowling together, cinema, etc. We also, through Aerogen Connect, we have Aerogen Chats, so we bring in different speakers from industry, healthcare, sports, etc. Whatever our team are most interested in, and we host events over the course of the year. Another couple of ones, my colleague Kirsten will speak a little bit more to it, but AeroHub, I like to think of it as our work baby. So that's the Aerogen intranet. We've had that just over a year now, and this is where we share all company communications. Because we're growing so quickly, it also means we're hiring people all around the world. So whilst all the people in our office here and the other one at the back of the business park, of course we get plenty of opportunity to see each other and share news. For our colleagues based more remotely, they don't often get to have that experience. So through AeroHub, we can help share our values, our stories, our success stories, customer stories, education, training, etc. So it's a one-stop shop for all of the Aerogen team to find out what's going on in the company. One one thing I just want to touch on as well briefly, I mentioned this year Aerogen turned 25. I think this is one of the most exciting projects I've ever worked on in marketing, and it's something I feel very passionate about. It ties in very closely to our values, all encompassed around we care. So as a company, Aerogen pledges 1%, and by that we mean every year we pledge 1% of our profit from the prior year in either money or product, and we also pledge 1% of staff time. So during work hours, staff can get involved with the charities and organisations we support. So this year we were like, how do we mark our 25th anniversary? So you see lots of companies might do pizza day, cupcakes, etc. But as I said, in Aerogen, we're different, and I think very special in the way we celebrate these things. So we decided we would host 25 events from March 23 to March 24, and each event would be giving back to the communities in which we operate around the world. As you can see, a number of these have already taken place, and if you're interested, follow us on the various social media channels and you can hear a little bit more. But just to give you an idea of the sort of things we've got involved with, a couple of weeks ago, a group of our team climbed Cairn Pool to raise money for Clare Crusaders, which is a charity based in Clare that helps children with special needs. And as you might see, all of the numbers are kind of tied in with the event. So 3 was representing the 3,400 foot of Cairn Pool. Another example is Special Olympics. So we sponsored 7 Special Olympics athletes to go to the Games in Berlin this year, and we were also delighted to have a number of those athletes join us in Aerogen a few months ago to speak in terms of their preparation for the Games. Some of the other ones, 18 of the team, including myself and Kirsten, recently abseiled from the roof of Crow Park, and doing that we raised over €12,000 for the Special Olympics. And coming up in a few months, weeks actually, which is super exciting, is the 20 millionth Aerogen Solo will make its way off the production line. So that's 20 million products that have been produced here in Ireland by an Irish company. Not just product though, behind every single product there's a human being. So that means almost 20 million people around the world have had their lives benefited by our technology. And I think that's something that we all feel really, really proud of, and what makes working in Aerogen such a joy. So with that, I'm going to introduce my first colleague, Sam, who's the Global Head of Commercial Excellence. Unfortunately, Sam is on annual leave today. However, Sam is an absolutely fantastic presenter, so we could not have her today. So she has recorded a video to share with you all. We're just going to show you a section of it because she speaks in detail about commercial excellence and the link to marketing, which I think is really fascinating, and you will be able to link to the full video on our digital resource room that we shared at the start and we'll share at the end again.
And so it really excites me to talk about these topics and to give you all an idea of how commercial excellence can work together with marketing and what that means for marketing in terms of functionality, new functionalities that you might have, or just new ways of understanding customer engagement and the data that you have to work with. If we look to the left, the first area is delivery and execution. And what I mean by that is that we provide the vehicle for the execution of the marketing strategy across the different market. Paper-based materials, you really have very little control over what the sales representatives are actually using in front of the customer, what they're showing. And then with the paper-based version, you obviously have no visibility of what the customer does with that content or with that material that's being shown to them. Do they keep it? Do they focus on it? Do they read it? Do they throw it in the bin? We have no idea. So with the digital materials and the trackability of the customer engagement with that material, we on the Pulse platform can see who the material has been sent to. We can see whether the customer has actually opened that content and had a look at it. We also have visibility on how many minutes or seconds the customer has spent on every page of that content piece. So you really have a good idea as a marketer when you get the feedback, which elements of the campaign or which elements of the actual marketing asset that you've created are really attracting the attention of the customer. The Pulse platform, we now have a place where all of that data is being fed back into the same data pool, and we can analyze that data and then give our marketers better insight as to which is the better channel to use or which is the more impactful campaign to follow. A true measure of customer engagement in a number of different formats. And we also have the capability with a new tool that we are just in the early stages of standing up, but we have a new capability through Marketing Cloud, which belongs to the Salesforce side of the product range that we offer on our enablement platform. And we can now design campaigns that run synchronously through our omni-channels that we have available to us, or asynchronously or linear, in a linear fashion.
So just a brief snapshot of Sam's video, but I would highly recommend you do go and watch the full video, and you'll get a really nice insight into the world of commercial excellence. So with that, I'm delighted to introduce Ian Bertenshaw. Ian is our Global Head of Marketing, and after Ian speaks, we will have some time for some questions for Ian before the next speaker shares their insights as well.
Okay, everybody, hey, thank you for giving your time and attention. I thought we actually do a little calculation about so I hope what I can give you justifies your money in front of me, basically. I'm 25 years out of university. I didn't do marketing or business. I did history, geography, geographical sciences. I then spent 3.5 years at night school doing the equivalent in Ireland of a level 6, level 7 and a level 9 postgraduate qualifications. Then 2 years ago, as a COVID cohort, I did a PG Cert in Sustainable Business at Cambridge. Totally enjoyable. And when you think you leave school at 18, you go, that's it, no more exams. It's full of exams forever. I'm going to talk about 3 different areas, and I'd like you to visualize an image in your head as I do so. If you search on the web, there's an image out there called Marketing Land. So think of an island about the size of, say, Ireland, and at the top there are the hinterlands. That's where we start. We start on this in terms of research with diagnosing the market and researching the market. So for diagnosing, one of the things we do is we split the 75 countries we sell into archetypes, and that's based around political stability, economic access, population access, quality of distributors, registrations. And if you have a higher number, we give you more time and attention, and you will give us, if we do it right, more sales and more profit back. And the lower the number is, you are opportunistic, or we're never going to go there at all, but if you want to be our partner, you can. And that's because we have to make strategic decisions about where we place our time and resources, because we don't have an infinite pool. So that's and this is a whistle-stop tour. So one hinterland, you then cross over to marketing research, or market and marketing research. So for example, we have built a market-sized potential and share model for our business across the whole world. And it's a partnership with Commercial Excellence and a chap called Freddie Balla, who's our a lead business analyst. We now know to let's say plus or minus 10%, the potential we have in any given country for each of ICU, so fixed patients, wards and floors, you can't go home, but you're not desperately sick, and ED. You've had an exacerbation, you're asthmatic, and the ambulance has whisked you in. We can use this data to decide how much sales time we spend, where we orientate people, what type of marketing we do, how much of their world, Saoirse, Ash, Emma and Sinead on maternity leave, will spend to help generate demand, which is that third part on the slide behind me, which is the very end. We also research for products. So there's a McKinsey model, 3 horizons. I love it, it's very useful. Short-term, medium-term, long-term. Long-term being 12 years out. That's about how far we look before it just gets too fuzzy. Short-term being what we're going to do in the next couple of years. And what we're doing is we're looking for opportunities, needs, pain points, and critically hidden motivators. Hidden motivators are things which we can elicit from a customer but they don't know about. It comes out. And we want to catch those, connect those dots and go over the horizon and take advantage of them. And hopefully our competitors haven't seen it. Either because they're not looking or because they're our competitors, they're rubbish. So we're going to take those things though and they will become, Steve Jobs I think was the famous guy who said that customers don't know what they want. And largely that's true, but they do know what they need. They know the things which feed their everyday life. They are the experts in their field. So we take all of that stuff and then we move on to the whole remit of marketing. Marketing is incredibly, it's a ridiculously broad church. There are people out there doing hardcore finance which are still marketing. All the way through operations, through writing to the very edge of selling, being a salesperson, all the way up to downstream, upstream, through the line, PR, everything. As wide as it can go, you can find something in a marketing world that you will love. You will. So let's move on to the strategy. And I love the classic tools. Maybe it's because where I got educated from and the era I was educated from. Segment, target, position to generate unique, differentiated messaging. It's insanely powerful. It underpins everything we do. So we take an archetype, we take what we call a P1A market, which is the United States of America, for example. Roughly half of our sales comes from there. We then look at a segment. ICU is our traditional segment, where we are very, very strong. Market shares at 50, 60, 70%. Or a new segment, such as the emergency department, where we are just getting into with a product called Aerogen Ultra. We then look for targets, the customers we want to engage with, such as a respiratory nurse or an ED nurse or the head of ED. And the titles can be different by market, but what they do is the same. We will address them. They're who we're going to go and engage with in a sales conversation, an ongoing two-way conversation. And then we'll get to our positioning. Why? Why do they want to believe in us? What value do they have from us? And then we'll create the messaging, and Ash and Saoirse and Emma will talk about that. We get thrown into the world of product and marketing management. Then we come on to call that the mountains in the middle. The rivers are flowing down. That's the upstream world, really. It's where we spend a lot of our time, a lot of my time. Then we get down to the city and the beachfront and the river flowing out to the estuary. Here we get down to execution and demand generation, where we want customers to pull what we do out. We don't want to be pushing it onto them and pressing it down on them and forcing them. We want them to believe in us and engage. And that comes down to your classics of 4 C's or 4 P's or 7 P's or 8 P's or, hey, maybe somebody's got 15 P's now. But they all come back down to the same thing. You're looking at what the customer wants to engage with. So our P of place is their C of convenience. And we're looking for ways to use a sales technique called Challenger. Sam is a market challenge seller, so is Jackie. So we run it ourselves for a license. This is a way when we will talk to people, we'll ask them to reframe. We'll take what they think and we will turn it like this. And then we can apply our unique, our differentiated messaging to that. And at the very, very end, we have a beach. The beach is brand. Brand it's not just what the company stands for, it's what we stand for. Our ethics, our integrity, our belief. And as you head out into that wide world and companies will interview you, you make damn sure that you interview them. You want to make sure that the 1/3, 2/3 of your life, depending on how many hours you want to sink into, you want to make sure it resonates hard. And I know that in my team, Kira, Kira's own little baby has experienced our own product. We have a lady in our team who we call the Office Ninja. She does outsourced sales and marketing admin. Her own kids experienced our product. And we see the differences coming out, and it's You know, it makes you, it makes the hairs tingle when you can see the visceral impacts. And I was in the ED and a PICU, a pediatric ICU, on Monday in Madrid, doing that marketing research to work out what we're going to do in 2, 3, 4, 5 years' time. And it's glorious to see it all coming together. So you start off with research, you diagnose, you research, you work out what we're going to do. We lay down deep strategy between now and 12 years based on hard facts, qualitative, quantitative, ethnographic research, and a lot of big data blended together. You come up with a segment, target position, messaging, which we call it messages, core claims. In medical, you can't just say stuff. Everything has to have a genuine clinical evidence base signed off by regulatory, medical, and in some cases legal. The standards are really, really high and strict. And then we go out there and we execute. We grow at 20% a year. 20% a year for the last 5 years. Before then it was even higher because we were smaller. We're going to grow at 20% this year. It's an absolute crank. We just keep on going because what we do is lovely. Let me finish there and have some questions. Don't be shy, throw them out. And there are no silly questions, there's just a silly answer from me.
You see the way you're on about motivators or things that you might have picked up that the customer didn't know that it wanted. What would be some examples that you encountered?
So let me take you back to a previous company. I worked for a very big multinational somewhere down the motorway towards Athlone. We had it's called an intraosseous device. It basically drills a hollow bore needle into one of the spaces which gets into your bones to get very fast drug delivery access. It was all driven around speed at that time. I was out in Thailand, and they were very keen there that they were getting told off for bunging lithium-ion batteries into the bins. So they wanted a way to get the sealed battery out. And that became a bigger deal for them than the performance of the device, was the grief they were getting for sending lithium-ion batteries into incineration, which causes all sorts of problems. From that same research, we caught a competitor, so an ex-employee who had gone so low and had sold their iteration of that device to a very big company, who we can't mention their name, but we then found out that they were looking at this and they had they'd gotten to it before us. They were going to design a device with a reusable battery inside, which could be taken in and out. So rechargeable reusables. But that gave me enough ammunition to go back to the American global team and say, I know you think this is nonsense, this is 2017, but this stuff will change the world. We've got to be addressing green concerns, sustainability concerns. We've got to get ahead of the WEEE, the waste electronics legislation, because we already see a company doing it. That's an example of a hidden motivator, which unfortunately our competitors have seen before us. You have to ask questions in a very semi-structured interview questions, but you've got to let the customer talk. You can't also let the customer know what you're asking per se, because customers talk to our competitors. That customer told me about something which we really shouldn't have known about, but it was very useful to know about it. Oh, yes, sorry. Yes, go ahead. And then chap at the back next, after you.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask how important is the traffic to different digital assets of the company to overall strategy? And the part B of that question is that what ecosystem is more important to the company strategy? Is it the Google, the Meta, or the other social medias that's
Right.
Yeah, and the third thing is a little bit of, sorry,
Okay.
because of giving you context. So the third thing I checked is that currently, how much do company pitch in to organic versus paid traffic?
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's take part one. Go and watch Sam's full video. The Pulse system is built of 3 elements. It's built of Salesforce.com, a sales enablement system called Seismic, and a learning management system called Jachibo. It's got some extra bolt-ons as well. We are standing up. The thing Sam said we're going to stand up is called Pardot. Pardot is a system in Salesforce which allows us to generate marketing qualified leads by tracking the journey a customer takes through our tagged digital assets. So we will have a number of assets. We'll tag with, we actually tag with Challenger. Challenger has a system where we have spark, so things which create intrigue, introduce things which bring them into our world, and confront, something which in the Challenger language will put an emotional impact, which will take them right down, to really recognize it by changing their belief. So the importance of tracking that so that we can attribute sales to our different assets is crazy important. We spend, our marketing budget here is, actually say what it is, but it's pretty good. It's enough that John wants us to be accountable for what we spend. And without that digital tracking, I'm going to attribute it to sales, and we can only attribute it to say it's part of the journey to it. I can't say for sure that even with the system, that leaf piece or that clinical visualization or that video is 20% of the influence. But I can say it was part of it or it was not part of it. We can also see how much people interact with things when they come onto Pulse. So their journey through the assets, how much time they're spending, what they're doing and where they're going is fully visible. We can track all that back in with 24-hour refresh sales data. So we'll probably, as marketers in this team, we probably spend half our time on maths, on big data stuff. Ash, from his previous experience, spent a lot of time in that with his last company, Fresenius Kabi. So if you don't like maths, learn to like maths. It's really, really useful. Okay, so your third part, let's jump to it, was based around organic, inorganic. So for us, it's the world of Meta or Google are less important. Our primary asset is our sales team. So we have 8 figures worth of cost being spent on human beings to engage with our customers.
The marketing budget is more towards the offline customer.
So of our pure marketing budget, we probably spend 4, 5, 6% on pure digital. Of our overall operational expenditure, we spend, and this includes human beings, and salespeople, no salespeople in the room at the moment, salespeople are a tool of marketing. So when countries come back and say, oh, my marketing budget's too small, we'll say to them, you spend 15 million euros on people. So we're going to max what those people do. Now, we don't say we don't use digital, we do. So, but everything comes to feed and support those human beings. So Seismic is the whole Pulse platform is 7 figures worth of investment. That is entirely digital. We basically print nothing. We have a few markets who still need to print, but we don't do that, and we do our own graphs because everything is digital. The entire sales pattern of what they do is based off tablets. We don't spend much on Facebook and Twitter and X. I'm going to call it Twitter just to Elon Musk, quite frankly. We probably spend 24, 25 grand a year on that advertising because it doesn't do an ROI for us. The biggest part of changing somebody's fundamental belief is when we can put a highly skilled salesperson in front of them. We do use social media though to spark. So we have prolific posting on social media such as LinkedIn, with some of it on Facebook. We tend to do less on things like Facebook and X because it's an uncontrolled conversation. And because of the on-off label, if we go too heavy there, we'll have to apply 24-hour monitoring. Because if somebody jumps on and says, you can use Aerogen to power cars, silly example, you can use that drug which is not licensed to do this with that person, we've got a huge problem. So we tend to shy away from that just because of the legal exposure we have. But our website is very important. Our website is very important for trust and credibility. So we don't spend much on it. However, the amount of time we spend within it is important, and we're actually going to have a job coming up for a digital marketing specialist role who will spend their life making sure that our online presence, our brand credibility, and the interactions and the ROI on our assets with the sales team we can prove it's actually paying off. So your face says maybe you want to answer myself, I spend 90% of my money on digital. Medical, we don't. We spend 90% of our time making sure that customers absolutely believe in what we do in a face-to-face environment. However, we are starting to build inside. In America, they call them inside sales reps. Over here, we call them inside sales reps. And they will sell through Teams. They will never be physically in front of the customer. There's going to be 4 or 5 in America. There's going to be 2 in Germany. And again, we'll monitor that to make sure it works. If it works, we'll do more. If it doesn't work, we don't do it. Chap at the back, and I'm probably running out of time. One more question? One more question.
Yeah, so as Aerogen's products are mostly used in hospitals and ICUs, I was just wondering how does the marketing department come to know that what minute changes we need to make, what user or consumer experience we need to change, and what a new product we need to make. Because
we're out there. So we have what's called we have a feedback loop. We call it I call it the intelligence hoover. Some people call it intelligence vacuum. It sounds a name. We are constantly sucking up information from the markets at a prodigious rate. We do it from our entire sales team feeding things back. We have 16 or 17 different mechanisms to get feedback. But the single best way is for us to be out there. There's a really old joke about how do you know what a bad marketing part is? Because they're like the Olympic flame, they never go out. We go out there to listen to people, to hear people, and to make sure that we can ask targeted questions and then hear what comes back. That is the single best way of finding out information. We also work with independent marketing research agencies, and they do research in parallel to us to make sure we're not cherry picking, to make sure I'm not applying confirmation bias. I can only hear what I want to hear. That is a big challenge. So when you get into your world of work, make sure you're in a company who lets you go out there, lets you speak with people. Your best way of learning is to listen.
He's allowed to. Global Head of Marketing Perks. Thank you, Ian, for that very fascinating glimpse into your world. How lucky are we to have a boss like you? So next up, I'm delighted to introduce my colleague Serta. Serta is our Global Product Manager.
Okay, hi guys. So my name is Saoirse Damon. I'm the Global Product Manager here at Aerogen. I handle what we call the vented portfolio. So that's anything that falls within hospital, typically in ICUs, in respiratory departments, places like that. Okay. And my background, much like Ian's, is miles away from marketing. So I started out here in Galway. I did science for my degree and for my master's. And then that was 10 years ago. So since then, I've been working in a variety of different roles in healthcare communications. So I sort of tripped into marketing. But I'm very glad I ended up here. I'm very glad I ended up with Aerogen, an interesting company to work with. And what I'm going to do today is give you a little taster of the type of work I do and how I go about doing it on a daily basis. So we have our nice diagrams here. And Ian has stolen my thunder by starting with insight. So, ignore him. So I actually go out into the field a huge amount. I engage with customers and I gather information, and that's massive because that really informs every single thing that we do from that point onwards. And we're in charge of defining what the strategy for the company is going to be going forwards. So there's huge pressure there and a huge amount of need to make informed decisions and the right decisions at the right time in order to create that 20% growth that we've been talking about. And the way we do that is we go out, we talk to people, we see what's happening in the market, in the field, what clinicians are thinking about. I myself, for my own career development at the moment, I'm doing 2 days a week of sales in Ireland to cover maternity leave for someone else. But it's a great opportunity to physically be out there talking to people in the field. And that has been a huge benefit and really does inform our next point, which is strategy. So we're thinking about where are we at the moment, where do we want to go, and how are we going to get there? And that can be anything from as simple as saying, we need to expand our team or something like that? Do we need to go to a new market? Do we need to consider a new product? How do we sell this product? What do they care about? What message works? What research do we need to do in our labs to give the evidence to support that message? So strategy isn't just going, I want to get from A to B. It's how on earth do we get from A to B? And it's very important to know where you're trying to get to in order to plan those steps. If you don't have a next goal in mind to achieve, it's very hard to say what your next step is going to be. So always thinking about that all the time. So I'm now informed, I've gone out, I've got my information, I'm making my plan, and I've decided I'm going to do A, B, and C to get to the next step. And part of that is creating messaging. So what is it that I go out, when I go out into the field and I'm talking to clinicians? What am I going to say to them? What can I say to them? Because again, we're in the medical industry. We have to be super careful what we say and how we say it. So when I think about making a message, I'm not thinking, what's the nicest thing I can say? It's what do I have the evidence to back that's going to have an impact and make that clinician rethink. I'm going to choose this product. And from their experience, everyone has a budget to work within. We're a more expensive product at baseline. We do know that we're working on health economics to prove this as well. We are overall, for the hospital, a more sustainable method and a more economically viable method for these patients. But you have to create the evidence to make those messages. So that's something we're going through the process of doing now. So it's a really interesting time for the company. And it's really interesting to see how much goes into making these messages. We can't just say, I've had a nice thought. I think we'll say this next time. We can't do it. So we have to be really careful, and it takes a lot of time and effort and strategy and research, and we engage with the medical affairs team, with research and development team, with the engineers, with regulatory, all to create these things. So a lot of collaborative work going in there. We then go on to development. I have a message, so what am I going to do with it? How am I going to roll that out? Where is it going to go? How am I going to position that person's going to receive that message in the way that I want, in a way that's going to resonate with them to make a difference? Is it going to be visual? Is it going to be something that I create an entire slide deck about? Are they going to sit there and listen to a slide deck? Should I just make it a picture? Like, we'll go over and back with this stuff to find what's the most effective route. And in terms of a lot of you here from digital marketing kind of degrees and stuff, what is that process if that person's sitting on their computer receiving that? Are they clicking through to a website? Am I contacting them through email? If I do email them, where is that? Where are they going? What's their call to action? If they do get to the website, what can they do from that website? Do they need more information to back up that thought process? Do they need the ability to contact someone or to purchase? What are we asking them to do? Do we have a fully mapped out stream of consciousness that goes with that and brings them to where we need them to get them? And then we need to be able to do that both on that digital side, but in person as well, because remember we've got those reps out there talking about this. So creating these really holistic systems that allow you to get that message across in the ways you need to achieve the goal you want to. And that's what we call kind of campaigns. Campaigns at the end, and in between you'll see creative. And that's something, as marketers, you always have to be. You can look at Aerogen's goals in general. I can say on the marketing team, we live and breathe by these. So the teamwork, we've already talked about collaboration. Innovation and ambition are massive in what we do, and they tie into that creativity. We are doing things that have never been done before in terms of the marketing and sales of a device like ours. And that means that we're constantly being ambitious, constantly innovating how we do things, the way in which we do things, how we're getting those messages out there, how we're engaging with our own sales force. Pulse is massive. There's probably, I think we've had a recent presentation that talked about we're in the top 96th percentile of companies in the world facilitating their sales team through a method like this. We're literally the first ones to get there in some of these cases. So it's huge and it's empowering, but it also takes a huge amount of creativity to do that. And then at the end of all of that process, you have your fully formed, lovely campaign, and then you've got to go and roll it out and actually do the doing. And that in itself, Emma and Ash are going to talk a little bit more about that aspect of the actual rolling out and doing these campaigns. But even at the point of conception of those campaigns, so much work and information has gone into getting us to that point. And I think that kind of summarizes nicely the overall work that I do. I've summarized it really, really quickly. But I hope that you can see that what we do is really, really varied. I can honestly say no 2 days in my entire career have even been remotely similar to each other. And it's because we do such a variety of different work. We're always looking for new things. It is very exciting work. And I would say because we're medical, there are times when we do have to be very cautious and it can be a little bit restricted. But that just drives you to be more creative, more innovative in the ways that you go about achieving these things. So always looking for that next step, that next way, that next insight. And you just loop straight back around again. Roll out the campaign, check how it's getting on by talking to people and gathering insight. And off we go again. And that is constant. And it will be constant if you do choose to go into marketing for your whole career. That loop is going to go and go and go. But you'll grow a lot, you'll learn a lot, and you will be excited by it every day. So I'm probably going to stop my chat there and take some questions if anybody has any. Shoot.
So as it was earlier stated, that marketing you said that can be a very big part of Aerogen. Just wanted to know that if Aerogen is spending towards a new market altogether, and what sort of research activities do they carry, and how is that implemented towards the end product campaigns that you guys do?
Okay, sure. So for the room, the question is about, we've talked about how we build these kind of campaigns for the markets we're in at the moment, but if we were looking at any new markets, or how we would go about developing this kind of research information again. So we're constantly looking for and at new markets. That is how we've been able to maintain that 20% growth. Are we able to access a country we're not in at the moment? Is there a healthcare system or an area within that, a subset, that we haven't accessed before that we can reach out to? So I'm going to give the example of Ireland for a second, because we're one of the most mature markets because Aerogen was here first. We're made here, and in Shannon, we've taken over the country. But it means that we were in ICU first, and that's where we send everyone first. That is our strategy. Start in the ICU. You have very, very vulnerable patients. We can make a big difference. We're a closed circuit, and it means that they're getting more medicine faster. They can become better faster, which is massive. And ICUs are heavily funded because you're saving lives. Another area we go a lot is pediatrics and neonates. Again, highly funded because you can save lives. From there, once the clinicians have used Aerogen, they get really eager because it is better. It is easier for their staff, for themselves, the patients prefer it. Then we start talking about non-invasive ventilation. You can also use it on high flow in line, you know, when you put things up their nose. You can do it in that as well. It makes it a lot easier. They can eat, they can talk, with patients better. We're silent. We learned later on that that was one of the biggest selling points. With other options for nebulization, you frequently have to have a big compressor that goes like, which is funny now. It's not at 4 a.m. on a night shift when you have a ward full of people and one guy in there, everyone screaming at the nurse to turn that off. So being silent makes a big difference. And those are things we learned, you know, innately we went, oh, we're sort of silent because we're electronically run. That has a huge impact on people's actual lives. Kids in schools and stuff have said, I can hear when before I was getting, you know, my talk or whatever, I had to leave the room because I couldn't learn while receiving meds and things like that. It is a big difference in people's lives. But to bring it back full circle, we're always expanding. So we went from the ICU and then we said, okay, where else can we go that Aerogen would be helpful? We went to respiratory wards because they're the next most heavy users of these kind of technologies. From there, we then started going, where else can we go that we would be beneficial? And as Ian said, it's the emergency departments. From there, we went, okay, if we go to the emergency departments and use there and we're used in respiratory wards, where else can we go? And I can tell you that in Ireland, we're used in hematology wards, we're used in oncology wards, we're used in PICUs, we're used all over the place. In these strange places that we never thought, even general medical wards, that we would ever go. But there's a need there, and there are patients that can benefit from our technology, and we had to say, we've gone there, we've done a good job, where can we go next? And what does that look like? And I can tell you the change in our approach going to those other areas is massive. So I'm on the vented portfolio. We also have a non-vented portfolio that Emma's going to talk a little bit about. We do two different types of marketing because they care about different things. With the emergency department, they care about the length of stay of the patient. Can we reduce how long they're here? That reduces overall cost because there's a cost associated with that in terms of health economics. In the ICU, it's more about can you get this patient to a better place and can they recover faster? That's more important. So how we approach those messages and we have to build the research to back those messages is really, really important. And again, we've done this in every country we've gone to, so it's a little bit different everywhere. But you can see how we're constantly looking for new places to go with the one item. And then in future, there will be other areas that Aerogen work in with other devices, and we'll look at those regions where we can go for those as well. And it's just a kind of, again, repeating of this whole process. So it's more that the structures are there to facilitate achieving a good result in those areas. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Very long answer, sorry.
Yes, actually, we just have a few more speakers to go through. Thank you very much. Sorry. Saoirse, we'll be here. Thank you, Saoirse. That was very interesting. Next up, we have Ash, who's our Global Marketing Executive.
Hello guys, I'm Ashutosh and good morning. So I'm really excited to speak to you guys because literally 3 years back I was literally sitting in the office. I did my master's in digital marketing from NYU as well. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. And so I work with Saoirse on the global in the vendor portfolio, and I'm a global marketing executive here. So I want to. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Sorry. So I've divided what we do as a marketing team, which is not just my role, it's actually what we do as a marketing team into 5 different categories, and I'm literally just taking a step further than what Saoirse actually explained right now. Okay, so the first thing is data analytics. I guess from what Ian and Saoirse said, sorry, I'm so not used to this. So from what Ian and Saoirse said, you guys would already know that data is king, and data is what actually you churn out every day. And with now AI and everything, you can see it just gets processed so fast as well. So it's data-driven decisions are important, and that's what we do. And now, how do we do that? We analyze the markets. We actually scrutinize the feedback from the sales team, and also delve into the customer insights which we have. So the thing is, now we'll ask, is it all about the numbers? So it's like number crunching? No, it's not. It's actually understanding from those numbers as to, okay, what do the customers need? What are the customers feeling and everything? So it's understanding their needs and their preferences as well. So that's what we do. Then from these insights which are created, what we do is create our own data sets. So when we say create our own data sets, this is where it gets interesting. Now, because the thing is, that is the exact data which we keep, right? This is where we actually see, then listen, and actually learn from the customers. So the thing is, this helps us be more proactive rather than reactive in the market. So then, next step would be to connect the 2 dots. So what connecting the 2 dots are about? So the thing is, in the medical device industry, it's not all about, oh, this is the product and this is how we have to market. No, it's about understanding and bridging the gap between science, because the thing is, you are selling science at the end of the day. It's not just a product, right? So we are selling, taking that science and turning it into something which is understandable and which is a common person can understand. If I'm putting something like, oh, XY, it's basically like Elon Musk's double name. Do you know what the logic behind it is? That's exactly how the data we get. And what we put it out as is exactly what it needs. Right? So we basically like translators. Get the scientific information in and churn out the information which is consumable for everyone here as well. Right? So that is our core competency as a marketing team. The ability to actually get all the information and get it out into marketing messages which connect the audience. Then once we connect the dots and everything, we move on to the strategy. So strategy, how difficult does it sound? It's like, oh my God, that's the biggest thing, right? It is, but it's not just about an individual campaign, because people talk about strategy with just one campaign. It's not just about one campaign. It's about the bigger picture and crafting the vision for the whole company as well. So our goal as a marketing team is to position Aerogen as the #1 product in the nebulizer market, right? So how do we do that? So it's literally planning, meticulously planning and collaborating with different teams. And literally everybody has a different skill set in all the team, in our marketing team. So we literally collab together and form, okay, does this work? Does this work? Does this not work? Why does it not? So it's asking the questions and getting back to to our actual, how should I say, executable strategy. Then, absolutely, like, people say, like, sorry. So it's all about successful execution. Even if we have a strategy, we have to successfully execute it as a team. And it's always like thinking a few steps ahead than what we are actually doing. And it's also thinking in one direction. Otherwise, it's like one is pushing, one is pulling, and it's like, what is happening over here? That should not be the situation as a marketing team. So how do we do that? So we collaborate. So the thing is, it always comes out like, oh, who did that? There's a brochure here. Who did that? It's a marketing team. And it's like, the thing is, for a marketing team to work, there are loads of moving parts. So when I'm saying loads of moving parts, there are internal as well as external. So internally, as we are a medical device company, we deal with medical affairs team, strategy team, engineering team, R&D team, and it's like, it goes on, right? And externally, we deal with creative agencies and translation agencies. That's what we deal with. Again, it's again to link with our strategy and actually get to our goal, our marketing goal, which we had decided in the previous year itself. So it's actually bringing all the different perspectives and the talents which we have and getting them together into a marketing piece, right? Then, once we collaborate, the thing is, again, you have to do something. That's one thing which, as a marketer, you have to do. Think different and be different, right? So, innovation is at the heart of what we do at Aerogen, right? So, we take pride in our strong brand presence, as well as because the thing is we have really cutting edge technology is what we do. So the thing is, as a marketing team, we have to match that spirit. And how do we do that? It is literally think, and it's so many brainstorming sessions for all of us, and thinking and coming to a consensus saying like, okay, this is going to work, and this is going to work. This is not going to work. And it's all about data and people and perspective. Yeah. So sorry. We're always seeking for new and better optimized content in our own ways, so that we can actually put the content out there so that it reaches the right audience in the right way possible. So basically, that is exactly what my role is. It's a very multifaceted role, and it's exactly, if you say the Irish way, it's like it's like a spice box. Everything mixed together, but it tastes really good. That's exactly how it is. So if you have any questions, just throw it out.
So I'm assuming what Ian said earlier about the 4% budget for digital marketing is primarily going towards brand awareness.
Towards brand awareness, yes.
So was there a change in strategy and messaging pre and post COVID? Because that's when everything actually blew up.
Yes.
Right? And something which Sarsha said earlier, that you're exploring different segments of different markets. Are we looking into the veterinary care side of things? Because that is something which can take your product to the pharmacy shelf, and you don't have to do B2B marketing then. You can probably invest more into B2C, and that's something which you guys can think about.
Right.
We have a side of business, a business development side. Now, veterinary, it's not being discussed. It sits on the horizon. The reason we don't go there is it simply isn't big enough compared to what we do with humans. I've worked in medical for 23 years, and in each business I've been in, there's always been an angle about could we do veterinary. I worked in airway management before this company, before Aerogen, and we did supply our devices into zoos for operations on. We went down to birds and rabbits and up to chimpanzees. We could, we're not going to. It's a dilution and it defocuses us from our primary goal. And we have, we could be 7, 8, 9 times bigger than we are now by focusing on the segments we're already looking at. But it's a nice question though. And wherever you go, certainly ask the question, because animals are incredibly close to us, and they can benefit in the same way that we do. Let me hand you back for the other questions though.
Yeah. Anybody else has a question?
Is it asking about?
Oh yeah, sorry, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't see you.
So you spoke about innovation and how innovation plays a big part in your,
Correct.
marketing collaboration with the entire team.
Yes.
I just wanted to know that the core aspect of innovation comes from R&D, right? The R&D people start to do some sort of research and some sort of thing.
Correct.
So what all things does your team contribute into that particular aspect, and how does the entire operations come into together from both the teams?
Good question. So the thing is, obviously, R&D does the innovation on the product side of it, right? What we do is the content side of it. So how we deliver the message it can be done in so many different ways nowadays. It's not just like just shooting emails to everyone. It's not just how should I say, just showing an interactive PDF or something to anyone. It can be done in a million different ways, but not everything works for everyone. So what we do is we try what fits and what does not fit. So that is exactly where we help. So product side, absolutely not. We would not be helping them develop anything, but obviously we give them customer insights which we get from them, and we relay it to them, and then they can develop it however they seem fit. That's how we help them. So it's like we are literally like the messengers kind of for them. For the content side, yes. So we are the owners for that. Was the answer? Lovely.
There's a really important split when you. Sorry, buddy.
No,
there's a really important split. So we deliberately do not ideate or conceptualize for R&D. We do our research to create a marketing requirements document, which reflects customer needs at its heart and a whole other environmental issues, reimbursement issues, cost issues, that type of things. Companies can get it wrong when marketers try to ideate. Because the risk is we will jump back into what I said before, confirmation bias, and we'll start creating what we want to see rather than what we actually need. We are going to hop back to the gentleman who asked the question before. You asked a question regarding messaging pre and post COVID. We'll just have a search to give you a little bit of detail on that, because it's a lovely question.
It is a really good question. So our way of messaging has changed entirely pre and post COVID. Prior to COVID, we messaged in an entirely different format, and one of the things we underwent during COVID was an entire resegmentation of how we approached messaging. So we broke it down into messaging by modalities, because that meant no matter which clinician you talked to, it was about how they were using the product, is how we talked to it. The other big change, and you've heard it talked about a few times throughout the different presentations, is that we have adopted the challenger approach. And the challenger approach, as marketers, we talk about spark, introduce, confront. Ian described it earlier. But there's like a wider emotional journey that a salesperson takes someone on when they do that. They kind of start off by placing doubt or reframing in the current situation. So they'll say, what do you do now? Do you ever have problems with that? How does that work? And they'll ask them, just to get them to think about, is there something here that isn't ideal? And from there they bring them on this journey where they want to talk about the emotional impact that has on them. They're going to want to talk about the details. So they'll start off getting their attention, and then they're going to want to do this thing called rational trialing, where they give them the evidence to back what they say. I'm not just saying that that's not good. You're right, it is not good. Here's the proof that it's not. And then you talk about, okay, so we know that that's not good. That must be really difficult for you. and you're dealing with patients, that must be horrible for them and their families. We're talking about that emotional impact of what that thing can do to them. And then you bring them to a new way, having considered what it would be like if you could, I'll just give the example, I said it earlier about high flow, being able to deliver aerosol in line in high flow so you're not putting you're not putting off the oxygen supply in order to give them medicine. And then they're like, oh, well, that's hard, you can't really do it. So you give them some evidence and show that you can do it. And then you talk about Aerogen at the very end. We teach our sales team that you only talk about Aerogen after you've justified the entire rest of the conversation. And that is very different to the old time approach of going into it and being like, hey, we're the best and we can do this, do you know how that works? And that's what people do, that's the way they're traditionally sold. Let me tell you absolutely everything right now about how great we are. And you'll go, yeah, some of the marketing jargon. Whereas if I start with, you have a problem and that problem might be something we can help with. Do you find that difficult? Is it something challenging? This paper says that this hospital is all flow within the hospital. That must be really hard on you and your staff. Have you find that really hard on you and your staff? And I said, yeah, of course I have. It is hard. And that's where you've got them. You've brought them on that journey. They now agree it is difficult, and then you go, there's something that might help. And that's a very different conversation, a very different approach to how we talk about it. And I can tell you the response that you get back is very different. So we've changed it in two different ways. We've changed our overall approach to messaging and the basis on which we kind of message from. And then we've changed how we deliver that message, both digitally in our marketing materials, but also through our sales reps and how they talk about it. So yeah, something to consider there.
Great. Thank you very much, Ash. Next up, I'm delighted to introduce Emma Diskin.
Hi everyone, so my name is Emma and I'm a Global Marketing Associate here at Aerogen. I started about a year ago. I came in just after I finished my degree in UIG, so it was the immediate start into the working world. So in terms of, as Saoirse mentioned earlier, there's two segments to our product marketing. There's the vended and the non-vended. Myself and my manager Sinead work closely with the non-vended patients, and that's where we focus our materials. So Sinead focuses a lot on strategy, whereas my focus is mostly on implementing the campaigns that come from that strategy. So the best way to probably describe my role to you guys is to talk about campaigning from start to finish. So in terms of campaigns, the best way that we find out what we want to do a campaign about is to focus on the market research that we have, as well as our long-term strategy, which is good strategies. So when we decide the topic of our campaign, we then need to decide what the value messages we want to incorporate in the campaign is. So when we've had those conversations, we decide what we want the reps to communicate out to their customers. We then communicate with our medical writer, who assists us in putting all this into words that anyone to the extent can understand. So when we have our first draft of these materials drafted up, we then contact MCC, who is our artworking agency. This agency we work very closely with on a day-to-day basis. So when we get the materials, we send them on, and they make them look pretty for us, basically. They incorporate our branding, they make it feel and look like us, and when we're happy with what we get back, we then have to send it for promotional material review, which was mentioned earlier. So that's with medical affairs and regulatory. We have two medical affairs reviewers and then a regulatory reviewer. When the pieces go to them, they're going to have feedback, comments, things they want changed. That could be minor, could be major. We then take those comments, implement them, push back where we need to push back, don't where we don't, and then we finally get a piece that we send back to them and hopefully they're happy with. When we get that done, we get a final sign-off and the piece is basically ready to go, but we need to send it for translation. So we work then with our translation company who translate initially into our 8 core languages. When that's done, teams still need to review, make sure everything's good, sorted, and then we get the materials ready for launch. So we put them up on our server, which was mentioned earlier, Pulse, but mostly Seismic. The pieces go up there into a marketing toolbox, which the team will know about once we do our launch. So in terms of a launch, there's a monthly call where marketing gets to communicate what we're working on out to the global teams. That call is actually nothing to say, I'm launching another campaign. So with that call, we have a presentation, we run through the toolbox for the campaign, the clinical data behind it, why we're doing it, and why the reps should be using this. The launch itself goes great, then afterwards we still need to communicate out because the reps' constant communication is so important. So that's where we have email blasts. We send them out through Seismic, which is easy. We load up all the contacts, all the rep email addresses, and we just have a simple email that tells them where they can find these pieces, how they can use them, what's available to them, all that kind of stuff. So that's typically a lot of my day-to-day work. Campaigns do take a long time, and typically when they are finishing up, there's always another one in the works. And say, launching one, we still have winter coming, everything in the works for that. So that's typically campaigns. We've done so far the Wheezies, which you can see on the banner there, the pediatric focused one. We have Disease State, which is my first solo campaign. We have the winter campaign, which is on the way, and then Weaning, which we're launching today. Another element of my job is then travel and trade shows. So when I get to travel, it could be for two different reasons. I go out to the field with the sales reps, basically just to see them selling, what they're using in terms of materials, watch the conversations happen in person, and it's so insightful. So that in itself helps us decide what we need in terms of materials, campaigns, what can we do to help the reps sell. So then the other element of my travel would be going to trade shows and congresses, which I'm actually going to one tomorrow in Barcelona for emergency services. So we go out there, we have our booth, I help to get the materials for that booth, whether it's demo products, pull-up banners, the booth itself. And then when I'm out there, I get to talk to clinicians about whether they use Aerogen, whether they haven't, all that kind of stuff. Talking to the reps especially is really insightful, especially just starting off. It's great. So yeah, that's a typical hunter of my role. If there's any questions? Yeah.
So as a medical device company, I want to understand that what components of the campaign and strategies are focused on the clinicians and on the patients, and do you see there is a over that number of campaigns and the focus has gone more into a patient centricity rather than the clinician centricity?
Well, I wasn't here now before COVID, so I can't exactly speak to it, but I would say our campaigns are very focused on what both the clinician and the patient would need, I guess, if I'm thinking right. Like, it's, the clinicians obviously know better than we do in terms of they're there every day, they know exactly, what problems they're facing, what they're doing really well at. But there's always that element where the patient needs to be happy with what they're treating with, so there is a mixture of what we're targeting, but mostly too, because they know exactly what they want to use and what's easiest for them.
It's a great question to ask, and there are segments inside medical where there is very, very active patient marketing, either direct to patients, especially in markets like America, or through patient advocacy or campaign groups. A lot of our devices are, depending on the market, are either prescribed or reimbursed, or their channel is triggered by the clinician. So we are very careful about marketing to patients directly. So I'd say that 95% is through the clinician, but taking into account the benefits to patients. And Saoirse was talking about noise, for example, the virtually silent operation of an Aerogen Solo, and it's silent, but we have to say virtually silent because you can't define silence for a claim. It is hugely beneficial for children. And the two examples of my own immediate and wider team whose children have gone through this, it's an immense benefit. So making sure that the clinicians are able to communicate with their patients about the benefits, but be in control of that messaging so that we're not seen to be going around them, is a huge factor. Now there are segments in the future which we could go into, which could involve more of that, with care. Cool. I'm going to just slip one more thing in here, which is before I let go of Kirsten, because 1 year out of university essentially, first big presentation to many people. She probably doesn't want me to say that, but it's good. 3 years out of university, or 2.5, 3 next summer. 2 years or 3 years since your last one, but 5 years since you were, yeah. So 10, 11, 12? 10, 11, 12. Sinead's on maternity leave. She's not going to say 14, 15. And then myself. We talk about what we do and how we do it. And we're going to get on to the final session of comms. We go for high growth, but underpinning all of that is growing people. I want to say now, before I forget, everything we do is about growing people. If you grow people, everything else will simply come naturally. And that's the overriding thing. And in all credit to Aerogen, Aerogen as a company grows people. One of the beautiful things is that John Power is my second level manager. Back at the other big multinational, the CEO was also my second level manager. I've had 16 times more time with John in my first 5 months with Aerogen than I had in 12 years with the multinational. And that's testament. A man who's working an awful lot of money and has got an awful lot of things to do will give that time. It's not just because I'm his second level board. You'll give that time to anybody. The amount of the standing joke is it can take John 40 minutes to get down the stairs sometimes because of the conversations he has. That's hugely valuable. And on that set of growing people and communicating to people, I'll hand over to Kira to you officially. But,
thank you very much, Emma. Next up, delighted to introduce Kirsten Morris.
Kira. Hi everyone. I suppose firstly, you would think working in communications that presentations are not so scary, but they are still a bit